Yeah, and we can talk about where it goes after. Okay, so I'm recording now, and then I'll go back to the presentation. Okay, so here we go. Can everyone see that okay? Just want to make sure you can see and hear me okay? Okay, great. So I'm thrilled to be here. And I just wanted to share a couple things that I've learned over the years. And I'm very happy that we can discuss together. If you have any questions, we can talk about that either during the presentation or after the presentation. So a bit about me. I've completed my bachelor's in kinesiology, and now I'm working on my PhD in medical science. I love to run, and so when I go on my runs, I also like to watch the birds and look for like new species of birds as I'm running. I've also been a teaching assistant for a neuroscience course at U of T, and my PhD is on the role of the parietal lobe, which is an area of the brain that processes visual information. So my PhD is on the role of the parietal lobe in motor control and Parkinson's disease. So a couple things that we're going to get to today. How does the brain control movement? What is motor learning and how can I use it? And what is split belt treadmill training? And then we'll just go through some things that I've learned. That's actually some of the research findings that I've made in the last couple of years. And then how do these theories help me walk better? Okay, so how does the brain control movement? So the brain can be thought of as a giant information processing center. So it receives all the sensory information from visual inputs, from tactile, from just feeling where we are in space, and it transfers that into memory and also into movements. So first we have to like identify the stimulus. So this is where we first will use our eyes or hands to identify and to understand what that information is, and then we extract exactly what is important about that information, and we decide. So then the next part is we decide on the response. So this is where we decide what exactly we'll do with that information. And this is really where we go between that stimulus and our response, what we're going to do. And then there's a more deeper processing area of the brain where we really make decisions. So this is where, if there's a lot of complex information, we decide what to do. We make a decision based on all the different information we have, and we organize a plan for that. So we can think of this as a very simple reflex circuit. So if this person is reaching for a glass of hot liquid, and I just want to show you what reaction time is. So I'm not sure if you can see me or if you're just looking at my screen, but I have a pencil in my hand right now, and I'm going to try something, and each of you can try this as well. So I'm going to let go of the pencil and try and grab it, okay? So actually, I want you to try this if you have a ruler or a pencil or really anything available. So I'm actually not sure how well I'll do at it. I haven't practiced, but we'll try. So, oh, okay. I was able to get it okay. Oh, that was harder that time, okay. So something you could try your own, which is, it's a very simple example of how we will respond and what reaction time is. So reaction time is the amount of time that takes to make that response of grabbing the pencil. And it really depends on the type of information that we receive. So these bars can be thought of as the reaction time, and a larger bar means that it takes longer, it's slower. So it takes longer to process something at 200 seconds versus at 150 seconds. It takes more time. So what we can see from this graph is that it really depends on the type of information we receive. So something that is tactile takes less time than something that is visual. So sometimes it helps to have something tactile that we use, some tactile information. The other factor that affects our ability to see the stimulus or to respond to the stimulus is the intensity. So, okay, so we have a little game. So I want you to, clear your desk or whatever is in front of you. And so I want you to tap the desk every time you see a green circle, okay? If you don't see a green circle, don't tap the desk. So it's just if you see a green circle, tap the desk. So, okay, are you ready? Okay, here we go. So, okay. So, okay. Okay. Okay, did you find yourself tapping the desk faster? See, how intense the stimulus is has a big impact on how quickly we can respond. So this is really nicely modeled by a graph, and don't take don't be intimidated by the graph. All it means on the axis here means that if we go more intense, if it's a larger and more intense stimulus, it's going to take less time. So on this axis, we have the amount of time. And remember that a lower time is a better, faster response. So if we have a stronger intensity, we will also have less time that it takes for that response. The other thing that is really important is how much other information is there in our environment. So in this example, we're going to play another game. So every time you see Waldo, I want you to tap the desk. Okay. So let's just try this. Okay. Okay. So so are you ready? Okay. So look at the fixation cross, and here we go. Okay, look at the fixation cross. Here we go. Have you found him yet? I actually don't see him yet. Oh, there he is. He's right in the far upper left-hand corner. So it took much longer because of all the interference. So what we can take from this is sometimes it helps to have less interference. One of the other things that helps is ability to recognize patterns. So in this, it was an experiment that was done on chess players. And what they did is they looked at beginners compared to masters who had spent over 10,000 hours on the game. And what they had to do was they had to memorize a board and reconstruct it. And they looked at how correct they were able to reconstruct the chessboard. So what they found, so on this axis here, it shows the number of trials they did. So a larger number means that they had more chances to do the task. And on this axis here, they had correct. So a larger number means they were more correct. And the masters were much better at reconstructing the pattern compared to beginners. But this was only the case if it was an actual game. So when they did a random, just a game that they randomly put pieces in different places, the masters did much worse than the beginners. So this really tells us a lot about how practice allows us to become better at recognizing patterns and allows us to become better at doing certain tasks. So then the other factor that affects our ability to respond is that response selection. So this isn't looking at the stimulus so much as looking at the response that's made. And we're going to do another task. So clear your desk. So every time you see the green circle, I want you to tap. Okay? So look at the fixation cross. And here we go. Okay, that was pretty easy. So look at the fixation cross. So I think that you're probably responding pretty quickly to the green circles. Okay, so let's try it a little bit differently. So, okay, so take your 2 fingers on both hands, like you're playing the piano or typing on a keyboard, and it could be any one of those fingers, okay, that you're going to tap. So depending on which square has a circle, okay? So are you ready? So look at the fixation cross and tap. Look at the fixation cross and tap. Look at the fixation cross and tap. So it took quite a bit longer, the more options that were available. Okay, we're gonna make it even harder now. So each of, yeah, 4 fingers on each hand. So look at the fixation cross, tap. Look at the fixation cross, tap. Look at the fixation cross, tap. I can just imagine each of you doing this. Okay, look at the fixation cross, tap. Let's try it again. Look at the fixation cross, tap. Oh, we'll do it one more time. So the fixation cross and tap. So the more options that we have, the longer it takes to do the task or to choose the response. What this graph means is the more alternatives or the more options, the more fingers that we have, the longer it takes. And remember, a larger number is not better in this case because we want a faster reaction time. So sometimes it's better to just have one option at a time for doing certain tasks. And this is referred to by Hicks' law. So Hicks' law, all Hicks' law is just a way of explaining how the universe works. And Hicks' law is that reaction time increases proportionally every time the number of alternatives is doubled. So something to keep in mind. So then that last part of processing information, that deeper part that organizes information and programs a response, really making a decision. So this last part is really quite a complex process. And I really love this example because it shows when you want to do something and then you change your mind, okay? So it's called a go, no-go task. And sometimes things can look very similar and we have to make a selection between the two. And so we are almost about to go and then we decide not to go. So then that's our brains really going through that decision-making process. So we're gonna do another task. Every time you see a skateboard, so a skateboard, tap the table. If you see instead a snowboard, don't tap the table, okay? So you may just want to take a moment each time you see the picture. It's even, this task is even hard for me, it really is. So if you see a skateboard, tap. If you see a snowboard, don't tap, okay? So let's try it. So look at the fixation cross and tap. Okay, so I hope you all tapped. Okay, look at the fixation cross. Okay, I hope you all tapped. Definitely a skateboard. Look at the fixation cross. Oh, did you tap? I'm sure that was tempting to tap there. It looks very similar to skateboard. Look at the fixation cross. Did you tap?
Yep.
Okay. Look at the fixation cross. Did anyone tap?
No.
Look at the fixation cross. Okay, I hope you didn't tap. Okay, so this is just a good example of how one of the ways our brain processes information and makes decisions. So then, what exactly is motor learning, and how can we use motor learning? Okay, so motor learning is it's really a process, and it's something that we all engage in at any time in our lives, whether it's to learn a piano or a new instrument, to type on a keyboard, the ergonomics of using an iPad or a new device. Every time you get a new device, you have to learn how to use it. And also for tasks like biking or other activities involving performance. So love to show this picture. This is my grandma. She this summer she got her first device, and she was able to talk to my brother's first child, so her great grandson, for the very first time over a video app. But my grandma has never been she has never ever used a device before. It was just so amazing to work with her and to set her up on the device and have my very first conversation with her over online. And she was able to see my apartment, and we talked. This would never have been possible if she didn't learn it. So everyone can learn, and it's just so beautiful that she just picked it up and learned how to do it before, or learned how to do it having never done it before. So motor learning is really a process, and it's a process that uses different parts of the brain, and it results in ability to do things that we never were able to do before. Everyone can learn, and everyone can become better just by practicing and going through. So I want to show you a part of a video. Now, I realize the sound will not work. So sometimes motor learning can be on rather strange, unique, interesting things that people have never ever tried before. In this particular case, it's a bike that steers opposite from what you would expect. So let me show you here. I don't expect the sound to work, but I'll just show you what's happening. Can you hear that? Can you hear that?
No.
Christine?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
So, okay. So backwards. The steering is completely backwards.
I've done that. It's a wild exercise at the initiation.
So he can't ride the bicycle. He wants to. He just can't.
Yeah,
So,
it's wild.
Yeah, Richard.
I say it's wild until you get used to it.
And I'll share the link with the video so you can watch it afterwards, but I'm going to skip ahead a bit, exactly as you were saying. So it takes time. So what he did was he practiced every day for 5 minutes. It took him 8 months, but he finally
Yeah.
So if there were any distractions, then he would immediately lose his balance and he would forget the neural pathway that he made. So what happened though, after 8 months, he was able to ride just fine. And then what happened is he went to Amsterdam, and Amsterdam has all these bikes, and of course he wants to ride a bike. Okay, so what happens in Amsterdam? He gets on a normal bike and he can't ride it. He just can't. So he feels all self-conscious because he can't ride a bike and all these people are watching him.
Is that your brother?
So it took him a couple of minutes, about 20 minutes, but he never really forgot learning how to ride a bike. He just had a different motor program. And look, he can ride just fine now.
Right. Julianne, was the backward steering bike set up strictly as a research tool, or was it done for fun?
I believe it was done for fun. I think he did have some interest in research, but I think mostly he was just like trying to do it for fun. If you watch the whole video, he actually made one for his son, and he wanted to see if his child son under age 10 would also learn it, and I think he was just like really curious what would happen. That's a good question, and I don't know why anyone would do this. So I think it was just for fun. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, a graph, but there's really a story behind this graph. So this particular researcher saw people making cigars in the factory, and he wanted to see how long it took them to become good at making the cigars. And why this was interesting to him was, well, you can always just use a machine, right? So maybe the machine is better than a person. So he went out to like look at this and how long it takes. So it shows how many cigars the factory workers made. So here is 100,000 cigars, 1 million cigars, which took about 1 year, or 10 million cigars, which took 7 years. And what he showed was that as the factory workers spent more time making cigars, they became faster, and they were able to become better. So it's something that even over years, we can like build a greater capacity for certain skills. Even at 2 years, they were still becoming better at the task. So motor learning really depends on that practice, like that 5 minutes every single day. And it's really interesting, how much should we try to do every day? and is more better. So in this experiment, they had postal workers, and they were seeing how quickly they could tap. So a greater number means that they were faster at tapping, and you want a greater number. You want to be faster at typing. And so each of these colors, so the dark blue is that they practice for one session for one one session for 1 hour. The pink is they did 2 sessions, 1 hour each per day. And then the green is 1 session for 2 hours. So they actually sat and they practiced typing for 2 hours. Like, that's such a long time to practice typing for. And then the group that practiced for 2 hours, 2 sessions for 2 hours a day. So they just sat and they just typed like all day, like, well, for almost like, I don't know if you can imagine typing for 2 hours over 2 sessions in a single day. Like, that's just so much time. But really what this graph shows, and this line here was when they tested afterwards. So like after they had learned, they just were curious, how well did they do afterwards? Like after a break period. And what this really shows is that practicing shorter and more frequently is actually much better. So the people who over practiced that spent 2 hours or 2 sessions with 2 hours each, they really did not do as well as people who just did their practice over time. So just small chunks. Even the people who did just 1 hour one time a day did better than the people who did too much, 2 hours twice a day. So really, this just tells us, you know, be really patient with ourselves. Like, we can just like kind of just like gradually get into things and just like slowly try it and then come back to it later. Yeah. Oh, and the other thing is sometimes just thinking about a task actually uses those same areas. So in this experiment, they looked at before the practice and then after the practice, and they tried different combinations of just doing the practice alone. So this was on a pegboard task, which is like kind of a complex task. And so they could either just practice physically, or they could practice physically and then spend part of the time mentally thinking about it. So either they spent 75% time physically practicing and 25% time mentally, or any one of these combinations. They even looked at just mental practice, no physical activity, just thinking about it. And they found that each of these had improvements to learning. Even just the mental practice was enough to produce changes in the skill. And the reason for that is it uses those areas of the brain. Okay, so what is split belt training or split belt treadmill training? So, you know, very similar to that biking example, a split belt treadmill training is where we have 2 belts. And where this is important is when we have any type of asymmetry, so any type of stroke or other neurological disorder that leads to asymmetry. Maybe one foot is a little bit slower than the other foot. What we can do is increase the speed of the leg that maybe isn't doing as well. And that really encourages that leg to work faster and better. So this is something that they have shown is helpful for neurological conditions, and probably even just healthy people too. You wouldn't want to change, like you'd want it to be with someone who knows about it, just because you don't want to walk lopsided just because you trained on the split lap treadmill. So this really is right now at a research stage. And it is a tool that we have at Toronto Western Hospital where I work. And so if you're interested in any research studies that are going on, you can contact me about that. So it's mainly for people who have asymmetry in their walking, and then this can help to correct that asymmetry. So what have we learned? Okay, so this is where I've done most of my research in my PhD. And you can see here this cap allows us to measure from different areas of the brain during a virtual reality task. And so the patient will use the foot pedals and step, and we can measure exactly what's happening as they're stepping. So we record the brain waves, and we can see where in the brain there's activity and what that activity might mean. So here's an example of what it's like to walk down the virtual hallway. And these are some of the kinematic features that we can extract that show us how well the patient is moving. So, oops. Go back here. So what I found in my PhD is that this stepping in the virtual reality has a lot of similarities to overground walking in Parkinson's disease. So on the x-axis, we have a measure of overground walking, and this on the y-axis, we have the performance in the virtual reality, and we can see that there was a nice correlation between overground walking and performance in the virtual reality. So what does this mean? It means that we can use the virtual reality as a tool to probe what's happening in the brain, to get a better understanding of what exactly the brain is doing at the time of walking and stepping. And so what I found is that compared to just wanting to stop, like when there's a stop cue, there's actually a difference in the area of the brain that's active, and this is in the frontal lobe here, as indicated with the orange and yellow. And you can see that there was a difference in how they performed during stopping and compared to the motor block. And this symbol beta refers to activity in the brain at this location, and we can see that there was a difference between the stopping and the motor block. So stopping is the black, and then the motor block is the red. So there is a difference between the two. So why is this important? Like, it would be nice to know what triggers the freezing episodes. What exactly is leading to freezing? So that longer step latency, this was not something that was intended, it just happens. So what brain activity or what triggers this? Is it maybe related to the doorways? And is there any way we can predict what will happen? Is there any way that we know that, oh, this will lead into a freezing episode? So there's a huge field of research where they will monitor what's happening in the brain as people are going about their daily life. And so the question is, oh, is there any way we can use this to kind of predict what will happen, and if there's any way we can at that time deliver any sort of neuromodulation or any type of intervention that might help with those unintended motor blocks. So now I think we'll go into more of a discussion part where I'm going to take my screen off of PowerPoint and just open up discussion. So how can these theories help me better? So this is more of a reflective time. So like if you want to tell me what you think, I'd be very happy to write it down here. So does anyone have anything they'd like to add, like what they think about this, or things that they'll do differently or try out, or anything that you're interested in? I mean, there's no wrong answers, so just feel really free to say whatever you'd like. This is also where we can take questions as well.
All a little shy.
I hope it wasn't too complicated. I know there's like a lot of graphs and everything, and I went through a lot of information very quickly. And I'm learning too, like how to present in an easy to understand way. So I'm really open to any feedback you have. But I think like, you know, these are all ideas that are used in performance and in helping people walk better, physiotherapy, kinesiology. And so, you know, sometimes it's nice to know the theory and sometimes it's nice to just see it in practice. So yeah. And I know it's really hard to like go through it when we're not here in person. Like it would be much easier to like be together, and we would like see some of these things. I could show you how I ride the unicycle, how it took me like a little bit of time every day. I was 14 and I asked for unicycle for my birthday, and I just did a little bit every day. It took me a whole month, but I was just like kind of holding, like we had this post. So the old owners of my house when I was growing up wanted to build a deck that never was completed, but they had these posts in the ground. And so I was just like holding on to the post and like learning how to ride. And I did it on like the grass because I thought, oh, I won't get hurt if I fall. Because I thought, oh, the grass is softer and it's not as dangerous. And I won't, like if I do fall, then I won't, you know, be hurt as badly. And sometimes it takes a little bit of that safety planning because you have to do it. You have to try it out. I mean, like going into like a more practical example, like certain walking or biking activities. Like sometimes you just have to go and do it, but you have to kind of safety plan as well. And even as a 14-year-old, I had the safety plan. So yeah, I think the take home is that everyone can learn no matter what age. And yeah, if we have a lot of interference, then sometimes it's hard. So we have to focus on one thing at a time. What is our goal? Maybe I'll write that down. What is our goal? Limit any interference. And
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you think that something like learning to ride a unicycle would be much harder for you or anyone else at a more mature age when you have much more knowledge of the danger? Do you think it was a real advantage to be fairly young and, you know, quite young and feeling immortal and not really aware of all the problems that you could have gotten yourself into?
Certainly. I think that definitely has a big factor is, you know, when you're aware of all the ways you could possibly hurt yourself, then I think safety planning becomes really important. And I think that sometimes it's not because we don't want to. We want to do things, but it's just that we have to know how to do it in a safe way. Like we're kind of coping at that point. And so really sometimes that is the limitation, is we have to think of things that might interfere. So maybe even the safety is a big consideration. So I think that if I was older, it might be harder. It wouldn't be impossible. I would still be able to do it, but I might have to think more about how to do it safely. So I might want to practice next to a fence. So I didn't fall at all. I was always holding on to something. So and then I think that would have been okay too. Like if I just was beside a fence the whole time, I'm not suggesting that everyone go out and learn how to ride a unicycle. In fact, yeah, I'm not suggesting that at all. But I think that like riding next to a fence, or like trying to think of unique ways to like overcome the interference. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. What are some goals that you have?
We people with Parkinson's, I want to improve my balance.
Mm.
And I have to work on that every day. If I don't, I notice it. Today, I haven't worked on my balance for a few days. I notice it's way off.
Mm. How do you go about doing that?
Well, advisor, our instructor, Joan, puts us through our paces to help us with our balance. But I just try standing on one foot and then the other.
So
Toe to heel.
So have you thought of doing it like 3 times a day or 4 times a day instead of just 1 time a day?
I probably should do that. That's probably a good point.
Secret.
More times trying?
Yeah.
Per day?
So I'm going to program that on my phone, so every time my phone does it, I'll know I'm supposed to practice my
Yeah.
balance.
Or sometimes you link it to like a meal or having a cup of coffee or tea. Like you can kind of associate it. So every time you think of, sorry about that. Every time you think about doing the other activity, you also think of doing just a little bit of your goal, small chunks. I think that's the other thing, small chunks. And not all at once. Because those postal workers that were learning how to type, if they did 2 hours of just typing for 2 times a day, like it just didn't work. They weren't as good at it. So I think little bits at a time. Yeah.
I think you
That's a
brought
good
up
example.
a good point, Julianne. Anyone else have any other questions or points they want to bring up?
I think also we mentioned like safety planning.
So can you use these theories in like a preventive way to prevent falls?
So I think like that goal of improving balance is like you know, it's something that will naturally help with that outcome of reducing falls. You know, you want to strengthen your core as much as possible. The core is the major area, you know, that helps us from falling. So right now I'm sitting on an exercise ball, so you maybe see me like move around a bit. So like having an unstable base is a really great way to improve that core stability. The other thing is like just standing up. So I'm gonna just move. So just standing up, you're exercising your core. You're helping strengthen that core. And you don't want to do like too much at once. You just want to have many different times like dispersed throughout the day, and that helps. But I think that goes back to Jack's mention about improving balance. Like anything we can do to try and strengthen this part of our body will help us to be safer and not as likely to fall. And then also like the safety planning part. So I'm really frustrated my grandparents don't use a walker, and my grandfather's had like multiple falls, and I'm really frustrated. Like it's okay to use a walker. Like it's just like it would have been perfectly fine to learn the unicycle next to the fence. Like I think like or like learning it on a softer surface, so if there is a fall, it's not as likely to cause any problems. Like you don't want safety to interfere with like wanting to do something, but I think like just planning a little bit about it. Like if it's icy, maybe it's better to do those like standing exercises inside instead of like going on to like an icy surface where it's more likely to fall. So just like kind of planning, a little bit of planning helps. Yeah.
Well, my birthday's coming up soon. I'm gonna order a unicycle, after a unicycle.
Why not a snowboard?
Maybe you could get a unicycle exercise bike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now you know what to buy, Enrica.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it's been fun having you here today, Julianne. It really has.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I wish I could be there in person. I think it would be easier to communicate and everything, but this is a good option for now.
Yeah, well, you've covered a lot of great points, and we really appreciate it.
And the vaccine is coming very soon. Like just this week, there was an announcement that we could sign up at the hospital. So they're immunizing everyone, and everyone will be able to get the shot soon.
That sounds
We
good.
can meet again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. We've had you here for an hour or so, so we don't.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've left us with some thoughts for sure, and maybe some questions we'll have. We're gonna have to have you back again.
Sure.
Ride your unicycle up the. Anyone else have any comments or any questions for Julianne?
No, it was very, very interesting.
Yes, it was.
liked a bit, yeah.
Thank you, Julianne.
Thank you.
I expected her to spend more time on the best student she had, but she hasn't been into that yet. I'm sure she will. Maybe next time.
Oh, you were in there. I'm sure if you look carefully, you see yourself.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's been great. I guess we were going to sing happy birthday to the birthday girl today, but
She's not here.
She sent me an email. They had problems getting in to the internet.
Oh, really?
Okay.
But I know we've had problems locally. The band's been overextended with everybody doing virtual programs.
Mm.
So even mine was showing up, it's unstable as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is the birthday actually today or was it tomorrow?
Well, it's the 7th today, I'm sure.
Oh, so I was going to
Well-
say we could do it after exercise tomorrow, but then it's not the birthday anymore.
Oh, well, happy
We could
belated.
still do it, couldn't we?
Yeah, yeah, sure we could.
Well, if she watches the recording, we can still sing for her. She'll
Yeah.
see it later.
Yeah, but it would be even later.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, you always have to do
More
it.
class.
Yeah, let's try and do it tomorrow
Yeah.
after our cheer.
Well, that's great.
Thank you, Julianne.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're
Julianne.
welcome. Yeah,
Wonderful
my
job.
pleasure.
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Avro,
Yeah.
Very
Um,
early. Yes, Richard?
before you go,
Yes.
I can't stay for the entire duration tomorrow. Can you do my cheer for me at least 8:15 or 8:30, whenever it's over?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I've got it on my iPad, so my other iPad, so I can do
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
Okay, Richard. I will.
All right.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for setting us up, Christine, and thanks for coming, Julianne. This was great.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, everyone.
And you must have been worried about your hairdo today, Roy, because we never saw you.
That's right. Or he didn't shave.
Thanks, Roy.
Hope to see you tomorrow, Roy.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.
And the dog.
Bye-bye.
It's silent. Okay.
Oh,